Everyone wants happiness and success, and we know how to get you there. Come listen to the Leadership Society of Arizona as we teach a proven logic to help you simplify life, overcome challenges, and predict the future. You're listening to the Logic and Life Coaching Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Logic and Life Coaching Podcast. It's been a little bit of a break and some things are different. Wouldn't you say, Dr. Jacob?
Yes, my co-host is different.
It's true. You might not realize this, but I'm not Chuck. But we'll be doing a new format here pretty soon. So we're going to call this season 2 of the Logic and Life Coaching Podcast, and we're really excited. We have a lot of great things planned, a lot of great ideas. So I'm your co-host, Dr. Jake Gunnoe, and with us, of course,
Dr. Jacob.
As always, the rock and good foundation of the podcast. So for this first episode, we wanted to talk a little bit about what we want to do with the podcast, what our goal is, and what we're trying to achieve. And so if you're listening in for the first time and you don't know much about our organization, this is a great episode to jump in on it. And we'll also share a little bit about, for those of you who have been tuning in, how we're going to change the podcast a little bit. So we're the Leadership Society of Arizona, and our specialty is in educating teenagers and young adults. And so what we really want to talk about today is what kind of education do kids and teenagers and young adults really need? So for the first question, I'm going to pitch this over to Dr. Jacob. Dr. Jacob, first off, what is the Leadership Society of Arizona? For somebody who's tuning in for the first time, how would you even describe our organization?
Well, our organization is a nonprofit, and our purpose is really to try to help prepare high school students of all backgrounds, ages, wherever they're at in their K-12 career, but to help them prepare to be successful in life. And one of the main things in my direction in supporting the Leadership Society of Arizona is I have felt that the academic arena has focused on helping students learn to be successful at taking tests and in school and in learning technical information. But that's not what the purpose of life is. And it's not what people will be doing for the majority of their life. And so one of the main directions and things that I wanted to do with the Leadership Society of Arizona is help students actually learn how to be successful at life, learn how to live a good, happy life, learn how to produce something of value for society. And so that's been kind of my direction in what I feel one of our main goals is as LSA.
And so why this podcast then? How does this podcast help achieve that end?
Oh, good question. Why this podcast? Because Chuck had a vision that he wanted me to speak and give my ideas, and I said that's great. And then as he told me that, I had another vision that, getting other people to talk as well and to ask questions and whatnot would be a good thing as well. And so maybe the vision of this podcast is to talk about relevant topics that people want to hear about that can maybe help them with their own students, own high school students or children, or to be able to even help themselves in terms of understanding what's going on in society, in academia, and in what they can do in terms of their own personal development as well. Not only other people's but their own. And so I think maybe that's my purpose in doing this.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's my purpose too. It seems like we're here for the same reason.
Good. I mean, you could have another reason for this as well.
I actually think one of the reasons why I wanted to jump on and start helping out with this podcast is what we do a lot. We work with a lot of students one-on-one, and we do a lot of mentoring and helping them overcome whatever issues they have. It's academic, personal, family. And as part of that, we talk to a lot of parents and a lot of parents and teachers who are trying to help with these issues as well too. So one of my hopes, I think, for this season moving forward is that a lot of the conversations that we have on here would be conversations that we might have with a parent saying, hey, my child or my student is struggling with this. They won't stop playing video games. They don't know what they want to do with their life. They don't have motivation. And then I think a lot of the conversations would be great if it's talking about how do you help somebody who's trying to help a child with that issue.
Yeah, that's true. When you say that too, I want to also preface this podcast with, I always try and tell parents, look, there's a difference between mentoring high school students and parenting. This podcast isn't a parenting podcast. We're not trying to teach parents how to parent their kids, because it's my belief that the child and the parent match. So whatever way the parent is parenting, that's probably what's best for their child. So we're not trying to teach parents how to parent. What we do specialize in, as you said, is mentoring.
Yeah.
Mentoring high school kids. We're not raising the high school kid. We're mentoring them. We're giving them advice. We're listening to them. We're understanding kind of how to help, their life go and what they can do to become more successful. Very different than parenting. We are not taking that responsibility on, as I was saying. I don't think we want to.
That's a much harder one, actually. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's such a good topic that I think for our next episode, I would like to start the conversation on exactly that. What is the difference between parenting and mentoring? Because a lot of the mentors that kids might have or might not have may or may not be their parents.
That is true. And even with us, as we mentor different students, yes, some of them, they're adopted. Some of them, one of the parents had passed away, or one of the parents is out of the picture. Some of them, right, they're maybe for a time being cared for by other people. So, the mentor doesn't necessarily need to be the parent. And oftentimes, it's not, but you're definitely right.
So then let's finish this first intro episode with one final question. If you had to boil it down to something really simple, how does our style of teaching, mentoring, how does it differ from the traditional approach, or what most kids experience as they grow up?
I think the biggest thing is with our methodology is the child is not broken. And so as we mentor people, the objective is not to change the child. The objective is to figure out who the child is and be able to help the child figure out how who they are meshes with everything else in life, meshes with society, meshes with school, meshes with what they're going to do every day. And a lot of times it's the opposite way. A lot of times it's, if you're mentoring someone, you think they're broken some way, meaning you have to change something in them. You have to help them improve in some way. You have to teach them something or make them build a skill up for something so that they can be successful. But even though we might help them with, a skill or doing well in academics or whatnot, our whole approach doesn't center around that. Our whole approach is that they are perfect with being who they are. They just don't necessarily know exactly how to mesh with the external environment and society and friends and people and family, or whatever they're having issues with, the academic arena. They don't know how to mesh with the outside to be able to utilize their full potential and to be able to live a good, healthy, happy life.
And from what I've seen, it actually seems like it's a little bit harder to teach that. It takes a little bit more work to figuring out who the kid is and what they want to do.
Definitely. It's much easier to tell someone, hey, you got to change, you got to be better. It's your fault, than to say, okay, they're perfect doing exactly what they're doing, right? We need to know, we need to understand how the external world can integrate with them, and to teach the student how they can do that. That's much tougher.
And that's a much easier way to say it too. And it's easier to tell someone you're the problem, go fix it, than to have to really get into it.
Yes, and it is a tough thing. That's why I think our methodology is not necessarily the most popular, or ever will be the most popular, but it will be one that always has the highest performance and the highest success rate. Now, I look at our students and the success that we had, and this could be a reason why people want to listen to what we have to say, is because our performance data, which before we're a nonprofit teaching students how to become successful at life and mentoring them, always a research group that studied and actually developed this methodology in the business world. And so at heart, I'm a researcher. And so at heart, we're going to measure, we're going to actually see if what we're doing is good and does help people. And our success rate has been very, very high, especially compared to other mentoring types of philosophy and programs. And so that could be a reason why people want to listen to us.
It's a good one. And if it counts for anything, I'm a byproduct of this mentoring model as well too. So, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit biased.
Yes, many people might not know on the podcast, but I've kind of helped mentor LSA, but actually the founders of it really originates with Dr. Jake and also his counterpart, Dr. Alfredo, and who were both products of the college organization and research group that I was a part of that brought him up.
And a lot of these podcasts are going to be, a lot of these episodes will just turn into live mentoring, where Dr. Jacob, who is my mentor, you'll get to see this kind of interaction here. Well, I'm excited. I think this is a great episode. I hope for everyone who is listening for this short episode, this gives you a good idea of where we're going to get going and how we're going to move forward. So keep an eye out. We'll run season to season, so for the whole year until the summer. And if you ever have a topic that you would really like to have discussed, or a question that you have, always leave a comment either on one of our YouTube videos or email us at team@leadaz.org. And hey, we love answering comments, and maybe we'll even bring you on the show.